Good morning. Today is Friday, July 7th, 2023. In the 1880s, there were terrible pogroms in Russia. Many Jews were murdered. And after one such pogrom in 1882, a large group of Jews decided to move, to leave. That was enough. Most of them went to America. But 17 families, comprising about 100 men, women, and children, went to Israel to establish the first Jewish settlement in modern times. And they called it Rishon LeZion. Now that phrase, Rishon LeZion, is a phrase taken from Sefer Yeshayahu, the prophet Isaiah. But it's more than just the phrase. It is the context of chapter 41 of the prophet. And I invite you to review this chapter of Sefer Yeshayahu, Perek Mem Aleph, to be able to see the complete meaning of what they had in mind in naming this place Rishon LeZion. I'll share just a little bit of it. Hashem says to the Jewish people through the prophet Yeshayahu, Mipa'al va'asa, kore hadoros merosh. Who is bringing this about? The return to Zion. Remember, the prophet Yeshayahu is writing about 2,800 years ago while the first temple is still standing. So he is going to prophesy the destruction of the temple, the rebuilding of the second temple, the destruction of the second temple, and then the ultimate, but much awaited, ingathering of the exiles in our time. All of that is prophesied by Isaiah. Who is going to bring this about? And who could choose this? Who could achieve this? Ani Hashem. Only God. Only I, God, Hashem says to the prophet, can do this. And in that effort, Ish es re'eu yazoru, each one will help the other, ula'achiv yomer chazak, and will say to his fellow, take courage, be strength. It's going to be an effort where you are going to have to work very hard and very hard together to achieve this goal. Al tira, but God says, don't be afraid. Ki imcha ani, because I, God, will be with you. Al titosha, ki ani elokecha. Don't be frightened, because I am your God. Amatzticha, af azarticha. I will strengthen you and I will help you. Af tamachticha bimin tzidki. I will uphold you with my strong right arm. And then the prophet says, Rishon LeZion, the things that have been predicted for Zion, Hine hinam, behold, they are here. And that was the name they chose, Rishon LeZion. The things that had been predicted to Zion, these 17 families, they said about themselves, we will bring them into being with God's help, with God's assistance, with God's promise. We will bring into being the promise of the return to Israel. This was the attitude and the hope of these 17 families, that they would bring life to what God has promised. Today, Rishon LeZion is the fourth largest city in Israel, just south of Tel Aviv. But in 1882, when these 17 families arrived, it was empty. It was desolate. It was desert. There was nothing there. Now, I don't know, and even after spending the day there, I don't understand why they selected this particular spot, especially since there was no water there. And how can you live without water? The nearest drinkable water was miles away and had to be purchased from Arabs. The cost of this water was 1 pitcher of water for the equivalent of 1 day's wages. These settlers realized right away they needed their own water supply, and they started digging a well, and they had many, many setbacks. And even as they got lower and lower, still not finding any water, they realized they did not have the correct tools to dig deep enough. So finally, desperate, they sent a delegation to Europe to ask for help, and Baron Rothschild gave them a donation of $25,000. And this was, in fact, the first gift that he gave to support fledgling life in modern Israel, of course, followed by much, much more, thank God. And finally, after setbacks and desperate effort, the cry came from 60 meters below ground, Motzim Mayim, we have found water. And they were finally able, with difficulty, to build a livable homestead. You can see today the well that they dug, from which they finally found water. Motzim Mayim, we found water. This phrase became the motto of the town, and in a sense, the motto of modern Israel. In spite of all the hardship, and with all the effort it takes, Motzim Mayim, we find water. We find a way to succeed. Rishon LeZion is a city of firsts. And in its founding, in 1882, they wrote, Matarat miastei hamoshava, the purpose, the mission for which we are establishing this settlement, is to make a life that is livable for us in this place. V'hayu lemofes la'achenu b'nei Yisrael haboim lahayachez ba'artzot hakodesh, and in order to be a sign for Jews to come after us into the land of Israel, le'orer libos amenu, in order to arouse the hearts of our people, lishuv Eretz Yisrael, ubinyan harisas halaom, to settle the land of Israel and to rebuild the destroyed places. And they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams in having many, many others follow and establish settlements all over Israel. Eliezer ben Yehuda lived in Jerusalem. He wrote the first modern Hebrew dictionary, and he devoted his life to reviving Hebrew from a dormant biblical language to a vibrant, modern, spoken language. And he first applied his ideas among people who agreed with him in a hospitable environment, not Jerusalem, because his ideas attracted a lot of controversy where he lived in Jerusalem, but he found a hospitable environment for his ideas in Rishon LeZion. And he spent much time visiting close friends and colleagues in Rishon LeZion. And he applied his ideas here first. Rishon LeZion was the home of the first school in the world in which all classes were taught in Hebrew. The first Hebrew school in the world was established in the late 1880s in Rishon LeZion. One of those supporters says, B'shat halimud, during the time that classes are in session, lo tishama bebeit hasefer, kol lashon acheret, zulati ivrit. No language will be heard in this school other than Hebrew. And when the teachers and the students go out of the school on a trip, wherever they travel, and any games that they play, and any activities that they play, Yidabru hayeladim beinehem rak b'lashon avotenu. They speak only the language of our forefathers, the language of Israel. One of the leaders of the community said, Ivrit, Hebrew, Ivrit babayit, Ivrit bachutz, Hebrew spoken only in the house, Hebrew spoken only outside, Heim bebika, Heim bahar, Heim besadeh, Heim bekvar, whether you're in the valley, whether you're on the mountain, whether you're in your field, whether you're in the village, Ivrit b'chol makom, only Hebrew everywhere. And in fact, credit was given to the women of Rishon LeZion for ensuring that this effort exceeded. Ha'isha shel Rishon LeZion, the women of Rishon LeZion, he asher rishona nensa l'drishaso shel dibur ivri b'bayit b'chutz. Harbe kodem l'moshavos acheros. The women of Rishon LeZion were the most insistent that Hebrew only should be spoken inside the house, outside of the house, wherever it goes. Hebrew was the only language in Rishon LeZion, and this was true before any other settlement adopted this practice. Another resident of Rishon LeZion was Naphtali Hertz Imber. And in 1887, in Rishon LeZion, he wrote and put to music Hatikva. That's where it comes from. And it was sung publicly for the first time in Rishon LeZion. It caught on quickly. By 1890, it had become the anthem of the modern Zionist movement, much beloved by the Jewish people in Israel and all over the world. In 2004, it became the official national anthem of the State of Israel. In 1908, as more and more people started singing Hatikva, and it was more and more important to them and moving to them and expressed so much the essence of Zionism, Imber said about his creation, I just spoke the words, and the people responded with song. In 1885, in honor of the 3rd anniversary of the founding of Rishon LeZion, Israel Belkin and Fanny Meyerowitz sewed a flag to be flown at that celebration on July 27th, 1885, honoring the 3rd anniversary of the establishment of Rishon LeZion. And that flag that they created for that ceremony, that was flown for the first time, July 27th, 1885, that was the first creation of and the first display of the Israeli flag. And Belkin described the design. We have this letter that he wrote. He wrote, again, in 1885, Va'ani uFanny Meyerowitz, me and Fanny together, Hayunu Teruchim Beintayim Ba'asiyas Degel. We were involved and working hard day and night to get this flag ready for this ceremony that was going to take place. V'zed Dmus HaDegel, and this is the design we decided on. Yuriot Arig Levana, a white cloth, a white background. Shtayim Ritzuos Shel Tcheles Mishnei Kitzoseha, 2 stripes of blue, horizontal stripes of blue. Dugmas HaTalis Shalanu. The intention was it should look like a talis. A talis that a man wears has stripes. Usually the stripes are of black, but they wanted the stripes to be blue. Umagen David Shel Tcheles Be'emsa, and a star of David in blue in the center. Of course, that became also the flag of the Zionist movement, and later the official flag of the State of Israel. Designed, created, and flown for the first time in Rishon LeZion, 1885. These are just some of the highlights. There is much more to learn about Rishon LeZion, and I urge you, on your next trip to Israel, spend a day in Rishon LeZion. The history is incredible, and it is very well presented. Marci and I had a wonderful time there, and we left with a real sense of a huge part of the birth of modern Israel. The prophet Yeshayahu wrote almost 2,800 years ago, Rishon LeZion Hinei Hinam. The things that once were predicted in Zion, Hinei Hinam, behold, they are here. Here they are. In Rishon LeZion today and throughout Israel. My friends, I wish you a great day, a wonderful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you all soon in person.